The angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. I just watched It's a Wonderful Life again the other night. It's my Christmas Eve movie. Every year. I have a number of these. Ben-Hur is my Good Friday movie. 1776 is my movie for the 2nd of July. Plymouth Adventure for Thanksgiving. And on the Friday night after Thanksgiving, it's White Christmas. Can you guess my two favorite scenes? Anybody want to try?
Of which of those movies?
Yeah. Charlie does something with...
No. It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Finding the Rose.
Is the angel Charlie?
Or daughter.
Clarence.
Clarence, I'm sorry.
No.
Started with a C.
The
It's the-
drugstore scene.
No. It's at the end. That's my favorite one. It's the one where they come in from all over town with enough money to keep George out of trouble because they're all grateful to him for everything he's done for them over the years. That gets everybody. My second favorite scene is on George and Mary's wedding day. Just after they've had the run on the bank and the building and loan. You know, when everything is over, George goes home, which happens to be the old rundown Granville house. The rain is pouring buckets. His friends put posters from the travel agency in the windows to make up for the honeymoon that George and Mary can't go on. Then they stand outside in the cold and the wet and they serenade the newlyweds. Don't you love it?
Mm.
You know, I have also never seen an adaptation of A Christmas Carol that I think does justice to that story. Charles Dickens wrote it in 1843, partly because he needed the money, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah. But also because the year before, the British Parliament had released a report on the horrific working conditions for child labor for the children who worked in the mines. In the mines. Dickens is said to have wanted to strike a sledgehammer blow for the poor man's child. You have to remember, Dickens himself was the son of a man who'd been put in debtor's prison. And he never got over that experience. Not entirely. So he crafted this classic tale of a miserly old rich man who has to be terrified into sharing. The thing about it is, Scrooge really isn't a monster. He's a man who's been scarred by his experiences and knows how rough life can be on the poor. And he's still acting out of that fear. But the ghost of Christmas past has already reminded Scrooge of the hardships of his own boyhood. And when the ghost of Christmas present escorts Scrooge to the Cratchit's house, who is it he notices? It's Tiny Tim. And he keeps his eye on him to the last. The weakest, most vulnerable, the youngest. There's an old distinction in Christian theology between the religion of Jesus, that is, the religion that Jesus taught, and the religion about Jesus. And guess which ones we Quakers are famous for our historic commitment to?
First one.
The first one, right. I submit for your approval that human connectedness is a vital part of the religion that Jesus taught. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. It's as old as creation. It is not good that the man should be alone. Human connectedness, or the lack of it, also explains why so many people hate being alone at Christmas. Even if you have people who love you, and most of us do, in fact, I would dare to say in this room all of us do, being alone on a holiday so utterly devoted to connectedness can make you feel desolate. We have a horror of being utterly, completely alone, especially for extended periods. That's why solitary confinement has been called the worst thing that they can do to you in prison. It's also one of the things that have been so bad about COVID. The prospect of dying alone because you were just too contagious for your loved ones to be with you at the end. And you know, we have first responders who have made it their mission to go and hold hands right at the very end for terminally ill COVID patients. And those people are saints. Now contrast that with what Scrooge's nephew says at the beginning of Dickens' novel. What he says is, I have always thought of Christmas time as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. The only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely and to think of people below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. He got it. In other words, this is the time of year when people in our society actually remember how we're supposed to live our lives all the time. And all the laments about how wonderful it would be if the Christmas spirit would just hang on. Turn that around. How wonderful it would be if we all were obedient all the time, or more of the time than we usually take time to be. Let me leave you with these thoughts from an old song by Jewel. We are God's eyes. We are God's hands. We are reflections of God. Let that sink in. That is heady stuff. We are reflections of God. And if you take that the right way, it is, it's not something that makes you boast. It's something that should make you conscious of how seldom we actually do that. Or at least do it as well as we could. So the question I leave us all with is, how well do we remember that in dealing with each other in the end Only kindness matters.